Welcome, everyone. It's a great day. Exciting. I woke up this morning at about 2 o'clock thinking, this is the day. And I know this has been a long haul, but I'm sure you'll be pleased with the results. If you aren't, I'm sure you'll also echo your concerns. But it is an exciting milestone that we've hit today. It's been a long journey to get us to this point. And just, I think a testament to what we're talking about today is your being here to hear the message. And not just folks from IST, but we have representatives from HR. We, of course, have the fellows and gals from Bannatyne. So unless I'm out of Bannatyne. We have a representative from ACES, although it is not Lauren Hilton, so I'm not, thank you. So we have a representative from ACES. And as was our custom at the last town hall, we had individuals also from what we call the distributed IT camp. So to those of you who are in that quadrant, then welcome. So really a large group of people, but the right group. At one point during this whole movement from IST to IT, we had talked about a one IT, or there was some mention of it. And really, it wasn't focused so much from what our view was, but really from what the campus was talking to us about. So to know that each of you are part of a priority that the institution has given one of its highest priorities to, I welcome you here. I'm glad that you're part of what the solution is going to be, and I hope that what you hear today, that you see yourself in the message that we're going to present. So we've had some starts and stops to this whole journey. I'll say 2.5 years, only because I've been here for a little more than 3.5, and I know it didn't start right from the get-go. But there have been some starts and stops to it, but it has really been a full steam ahead process since about the late spring of last year. And so we've been trying to keep you up to date. Of course, a lot has been in motion, and we've learned about how we're going to move forward as we've cut away at each layer of this complex problem. So as per my email, I guess it was about a week and a half ago, today we're here to talk to you about the straw man. Really sort of an upper level of the org chart, and I'm sure you're all pining to hear that. But having said that, it is an incredible amount of work that's gone on. And I wouldn't be here standing talking to you today if it weren't for the efforts of some key people that I want to raise your attention to. So Mario Labar has been running with this for some time and doing an incredible job of keeping all the pieces together and peeling away at areas that we didn't think that we needed to talk about. So to the work that you've done, Mario, stupendous, and thanks very much for guiding us along. Co-architects in this, of course, have been Doug Stoiko and K.L. Holter. And so, really when you look at a group of people that you need to work closely with, I can't imagine a tighter group of people who have kept each other honest through the whole process, but have really worked in step to see this come to this point in time and the result that we're going to review with you today. So I try to simplify when things get as complicated as they can be sometimes. I try to simplify it into no more than 3 key words. And what you're going to hear about today is demand, supply, and control. And so as you hear each of the pieces and the segments of today's agenda, you're going to hear bits of that. And so what I hope you leave with is recognizing that we want to do and need to do a better job of meeting the demands of the institution. We are all here as suppliers of those solutions. So if you don't see yourself, in any discrete part of the presentation, you should see yourself as a major component in how we're going to move this forward. So on the supply side, the org design is a method and a channel that will get us to that meeting of the high and escalating demands. And of course, on the control side, there are some additional controls and measures that we need to put in place as our unit grows and we attend to the needs of the university. So I hope you see yourself And with all of that intro in place, on with the show. So the first topic that we were going to speak to, I guess I'm in control. Okay, so I'll switch over here. So the first topic we were going to talk to today was the IT governance and the launch. I think I've exhausted your patience on talking about what IT governance was in past town halls, but we're going to talk about the actual launch and the hard work that some people have done to get it to this point. Then we'll deal I'll pass the floor over to K.L. Holter, and she'll give you an update on the ITSM project within the whole IT transformation. Then pass over to Mario so that he can get into the beginnings of the org design work. We'll open up to questions and any observations that you've got, and then a quick close. So that's what we're speaking to today. So the launch. Here's the demand side. The demand is putting a better mechanism around how the campus communicates with us about what is important to them. And so the governance is nothing more than just a channel on how we will interact with our community. You all do that today, but the demands are competing and difficult to try and validate. So what we're proposing through the IT governance really is a model that raises the profile of those people on campus who should be making decisions, can be making decisions, but giving them that forum to be able to do that. So I've gone over the construct of it and how it's very client-focused, how we've identified 5 stakeholder groups, one of which is this community here of IT people, but looking at faculty, students, researchers, and administrators, and really trying to solve the problem of effectively communicating and having a conversation with them, not just an intake process. So we are at a point now where we think we have enough on the plane to be able to fly it. It is not complete, and I'm sure that there will be some dips that we'll experience along the way. But we are not of an attitude anymore to try and over-design or over-fabricate what we're going to be moving forward with. And you'll see that in all of the parts, really. If you haven't seen it already, it's evident in the ITSM, it's evident in the organizational design, and it's also evident in the learning and management development program that we have in place. So we're learning as we go, but we always start with a solid framework. And that's what I hope you'll see today, is that there is a solid foundation for a lot of this that we want to move forward. So we're planning on launching on January the 20th. We think we'll not only have the process and the procedure in place to do it, but we'll have a number of proposals already in from the client community, as broadly as they are and they represent themselves. So not exactly on January the 20th maybe, but we do want to sort of settle the idea in that we have a mechanism in place now for the community to talk to us from all of those constituents, from both of the campuses, and a method of being able to receive and listen to those requests as they come in. But we would like to, in short order, set up a mechanism by which we're formally announcing to the university that we've got some sense of the reliability of what we're putting in place, and that we'll do a call for proposals. So you'll all see that, as will most of the members of the campus. But really getting to a point where we feel bold enough to be able to ask the question, what would you like from IT? So as I mentioned, we've already got some work underway. The 2014-15 portfolio that all of you are working on to some extent is very much an aggressive plan to complete some really significant pieces for IT improvement here on campus. We probably oversold our ability to do all of the work, but that was to be expected given some of the processes that were maturing. So we do know that we're going to have some carryover for the 2014-15 portfolio, and it will bleed to some extent into the next fiscal year, starting April 1st. For how long? Not certain at this point in time, but our first objective will be to finish that 14-15 list. That's a commitment and an obligation that we made as an IT group to the community, and so we want to live through with that commitment. But there are a number of proposals that have been coming through, and they are aligned to each of those committees that I spoke about in previous town halls. So you can see from the list here, and they are ranked in order of priority. That could shift again when we meet with the committees or meet with the University IT Advisory Council. But this will give you a sense of some of the work, and only a part of the work, that we've done some initial fact-finding on. So you see IT security improvements has moved to the top of the list for next year's catchment of work. Implementing the new identity and access management system, the classroom tech improvements. I call it a stage 3. I think it is the 3rd iteration. But to those of you who've engaged on that project and made it the success that it is, that's a real testimony to us now moving into a 3rd year and proposing something of that caliber. It's much needed by the university. I don't think anybody would contend that we're 5.9s on this right now in terms of penetration across the campus. But for us to be able to get a 3rd year and proposing it is a real testimony to how well you've all worked on this in stage 1 and stage 2. Wireless stage 4. I believe it's stage 4. And again, the same accolades to each of you who've worked on this project and enabled it. The campus community can't get enough of this, and we are getting to a stage now where there's renewal that's happening on the older technologies. So for the campus to identify and be consistent year over year over year over year that this is an important priority really is because you've been able to deliver on their expectations. We've got DNS, DHCP, and IPAM management as a number 5. And it was actually a tie between 5 and 6, so it was 5A and 5B. The network switch replacements is up there. Again, you'll see infrastructure and application renewal is still a very strong theme in our proposal to the IT governance model and to the executive. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the NRC, the Moniasis database has become an important repository for the work that group is working on. CCTV renewal, so closed circuit TV, for those of you who are in the security business, recognizing that there is a big push that we need to make on that to enhance that service to those on campus who are expecting to work in a safe and respectful work environment. Mobile website experience, we're looking at major improvements to the good work that's already been done. Open area lab improvements, we've dabbled in that in sort of what I would call a non-strategic way, but we do want to look at that in an all-encompassing way and really extend the design out to all of the labs that we have on campus, complementing it with a one-card printing capability and option. Number 11 is the data center site selection. That project is a large endeavor, so there is no fast tracking on this one. And it is only number 11 because of some of the other more immediate work that we need to attend to, and it's pacing itself at the right regulated rate anyway. And then number 12 is the portal project, stage 2. So great work done by the team on stage 1 and a demand for more in that next phase. And as the last point alludes to, there's another 47 and counting. Only 2 weeks ago we were at 36, and the number seems to grow even before we announce. So if you didn't think there was demand, then come back in a week's time and you'll probably see that the list is expanded again. And so all of this is being fed into the IT governance model for them to be able to discuss, discern, prioritize, rank, and give us a better set of marching orders in terms of what needs to be done into the following year. So that is IT governance in its active form. So I'll pass it over now to KL, and she'll speak to you about where ITSM is at.
Does this work? Yep. Okay. Can you guys hear me okay? So I'm just going to give you a quick update because I don't want to be the barrier between what you guys are really, really interested in. And but there are a few really important things I just want to remind everybody about with respect to the IT service management project. So one of the things that you should have seen recently is a couple notifications. These notifications are going to come out from time to time. We did a few in the summer, and we'll continue to do them as we go along. They're kind of a did you know, and so they come out as this bright blue with question marks, email, kind of very quick to the point. It's really just to remind you that there's some new features or information, a new way of doing things, or just a reminder of how to do something. Some of these are hints and tips. This one was a reminder. The team worked really, really hard this summer and was able to implement some of this functionality. Some of the managers and team leads have been doing a great job of creating knowledge articles. But knowledge articles, or knowledge management as the function is called in the Sharewell tool, allows people to either share information about this incident has something that is very specific and I want to be able to offer the opportunity to save some information about this kind of ticket, and I want to share that information with everybody. So a knowledge article can be attached right to an incident or a certain type of category or request. And it's available for everybody to be able to search. And so what we've seen now in the last little while is some people are using it without the formal, by the way, we want you to use it now. Now we do. We really encourage everybody to start using it right away. There are 3 ways to search it within the tool. Really quickly within the tool, you can, if you're actually in a category, once you've selected a service in a category, there will be a little icon right beside it that will say, hey, there's a knowledge article related to this category. You might want to read it if you need assistance. And you can also just manually search it through a quick search. There's a toolbar. There's a little help thing in the far right corner that will help you along with that. As well, we sent out a little bit of information about the Sharewell mobile app. So the Sharewell mobile app has some quick features, but it allows you to do the on-the-go stuff. So for those people that are involved in service requests and incident management, or people that might be in a meeting and they have to look at assigning a task to somebody, they get all the tasks and they have to look at them, this information is readily available on mobile devices. It's primarily available on Android and iOS, and I'm just going to show you really quickly, but all the high-level tasks, the assigning, acknowledging, declining, reassigning, putting something on hold, closing a task, are all available within the app now. And but we did want to remind people that it's really important that for full functionality, you really need the desktop app. There's some limitations. You can use the browser view. The browser view has to be used on the BlackBerry. The BlackBerry does not have an app today, unless you have a brand new BlackBerry, and then there's some converter thing, and Service Desk can help you with that. But there is, I know if you have the newest version of the BlackBerry, there is some sort of Android emulator, I think they called it, that allows you to use the Android app on the BlackBerry. But at a high level, you can use the full functionality on the desktop, some fairly robust functionality on the mobile app, or on the website, and somewhat more limited on the mobile app. So these are just key reminders. Something I've talked to you a little bit about and really want to share just a couple key points today. We've worked really hard as a team. Everybody's worked really hard on using the tools and using the technologies and keeping track of things. And so now we're able to actually start taking advantage of that new cleaned up information to create some KPIs. So KPIs, as a reminder, I talked about this a little bit at the last town hall, but they're measurements that would indicate, there's lots of other measurements that are behind this, but these are kind of the 8. We're going to streamline, or I guess they're 9, but 2 are very similar, that we're going to streamline and look at on a monthly basis. So some of these KPIs are calculated monthly, some are calculated annually, some are calculated quarterly. So you will see that we're slowly filling these in. One of the ones that was new, that you wouldn't have seen at the last town hall, you would have seen it as a to be determined, are the cost-related ones. So we're looking at, there's some KPIs, and there's lots of other costs we can measure in between, but there's a couple key. If you can resolve something at the very first point of contact, obviously there's less cost, because it's one person helping a client. But if something requires extra support, and there's lots of things that have to require that extra level of support, but they cost significantly more. And so from a benchmark perspective, we were able to calculate these, and our numbers are quite reasonable. We've done some very detailed comparisons with some support teams to help us determine, are we out of alignment with other organizations? But most importantly, this will be good for us to look at as a trend for ourselves over time. We know that we have a limitation. One of the key limitations we have with measuring this is actually that we don't do time reporting. So because we don't do time reporting, we are using estimated resource plans. So the management team work really closely with you guys all to collect information and do a resource plan. So we're using that resource plan estimates to determine our costs. So if Michael McIntyre's team says they spent 1,000 hours in that quarter, and we're averaging a quarter, so it's not, one day you can't make a mistake, can't cause a great big mistake, but you're looking at that at a quarterly basis. He says, my team, Joe, Sam, and Fred, spend 10% of their time. We use that average compensation for that larger team times 10% of the time to come up with these calculations. We also put some high-level tooling costs in for that type of support. But we don't have bricks and mortar in our calculation. We were not able to get that yet. We are working with finance and others to try and see if there's a per square foot cost that we can associate with this to really be able to benchmark against other organizations. Something I do want to share with you is that we're kind of a little bit leading edge. I mean, we're not the only people doing IT service management in universities, but interestingly, we've actually had some universities call us and say, so how is it going? What's working for you? What's not working for you? So we are having those conversations with other universities, Queen's and Guelph and St. Cloud University in Minnesota and a few others that I can't remember off the top of my head. This information will be available for you right now to take forward. The managers, the team leads have all had an opportunity to see this before with some more detailed explanation. Hopefully, they've had an opportunity to share that with you. I know we shared that with them a couple weeks ago. If they haven't, they do have it, and they do have some details to share with you on what these calculations mean and why they're important. And I'm going to give you a really quick update now of what's happening next. So we have 3 streams of work, and they're all different groups of people. So I know that we initially thought we'd only ever look at 2 streams at a time, but we are looking at 3 pieces of work at the moment. One is around change management, one is around service asset and configuration management, and one is around incident request fulfillment. Although we've already done the majority of it, we're looking at how can we support the AV and classroom technologies teams in incident request fulfillment. So from a high level, this was our original project timeline that we were looking at a number of pieces in stage 1. And here's where we are right now. We are working hard on these pieces. The next pieces to come, as you can see, we're going to be doing some work on business relationship management. There's a little block of time for problem management coming up in the early in the new year. That's mostly to look at, that first piece is to look at what skills we need to develop, because we expect that we probably don't have all the skills to do full-fledged problem management. So before we really get down the path, we want to look and find some champions that we can maybe provide some training and look at some assessment first. The reservation manager on this one is actually that incident request fulfillment for AV. It's the same piece. So that was the really fast version. As I said, you should have received notifications from the service desk on a couple of those did you knows. If you've missed them, let us know. We can resend them to you or look for them. They were in the last couple of weeks. And your managers have some information on the metrics that they can probably share with you. Does anybody have any questions? Not right now. I know you're waiting.
Thanks, Gail. Alrighty. So this is about org design, and I want to start by saying org design is 3 things. I think I've said this a number of times, but I'll say it again. It is about the structure, it is about the talent, and it is about the process. So what we're going to look at today is one element of that, and that's what I'm going to call, in quotation marks, the management layer structure. Okay? And structure is a blunt instrument, so it's not a scalpel. It's something that you put in place, and you have to recognize you have to kind of work with what you've got. Okay? It doesn't have, what you're going to see doesn't have the refinement it's going to need going forward, but just think about it that way. It's one part of this sort of 3-part piece. The other thing about this is it's a structure, and you'll be able to download it at the end of the day and get a printout. It's 2 dimensions. Okay, it's colors and pictures on a page. It's not actually how we work. How we work is this process and relationship, right? It's the people we have and the way we work together. So this is just one element of it. So all that to say, this is not self-explanatory. So you do not take this picture and go home and go, aha, I will sort out what all this means by just delving into this on my own. No, this is not it, okay? So that's why we're doing this presentation, why we're going to be available for discussion afterwards. It's not self-explanatory. So try not to put too much emphasis on the picture, although you've been looking for some kind of picture for about 18 months, okay? So I'm just trying to manage some expectations there. Okay, so how did we get here? You've heard this as well, right? The What We Heard report, which is about making sense. So we do this iteration. We did it one more time. We did it once with sort of the executive of the organization and outside with the clients. We did that last year. And this year, we hired the same firm, Sierra Systems, and we did kind of the same thing, very much so. We did a What We Heard report where we interviewed a lot of people. We had you fill out the workbooks, operational ones, and IT skills assessments, all that kind of stuff. And we brought it together to try and figure out, okay, what's going on out there? We, of course, have our own judgments as well and our own experiences as the leadership team, but we want to draw on that because it worked so well last time. And it worked very well this time as well. And then last time we had these different models. We had a plan, build, run model, and we had a technology-focused model, and we had kind of a business-focused model. And the organization said, no, plan, build, run, enterprise-wide, that's kind of where we want to go. So this time we kind of took that as a given, and we said, well, now we got plan, build, run, there's different ways we can implement that. We can be very service-oriented. We can be very sort of purist and have a plan, build, run model. Or we can come up with something that's kind of more, sort of a hybrid of the two. Maybe that's more client-oriented, because that's part of what we want to do. And when I say plan, build, run, there's no client in there. So you got to remember that this is kind of a pragmatic view of how to implement this structure. It's not a purist view, okay? All right. Part of the thinking is we framed it up here as opportunities, but another way that you can look at this is answering the question, what problem are you trying to solve? And sometimes identifying opportunities, that's great. It's kind of like a blank page, but it may not give you the focus you need. So when you go through all that material, another way to look at it is saying, well, what problems are we trying to solve? How will we know we've done a good job in terms of we've solved these issues? There's opportunities as well. So I went through it with our team here, and we went through this in detail about the leadership team here. So Doug, myself, Kale, and Mike read all the material. Probably about 50 or 60 pages worth of text, most of which I wrote. So I understand it for all its gory details. They read it all, brought it together, plus their own experience, and we actually wordsmithed these 7 statements, okay? So we did spend some time thinking through this. Now we might be wrong, but these are definitely ours. And the way we ranked them was those things that are fundamental. So you can organize things in a lot of different ways. And we organized them in the sense of saying high priority is the things we have to get in first. We have to lay this foundation first. That's the high priority piece. And once we get that done, then we can layer stuff on top, okay? So it doesn't, you think about it, again, the analogy sort of building a house. It's not that the basement is the most important part of your house when you're done, but you definitely need one first before you can do the rest, okay? So, 1, improve our ability to respond to external and internal audits. We have not done a particularly good job of this. And the rest of the organization reflects back on us and says, you got to do better with this. This is a real opportunity for improvement for IT as a whole. So, and part of doing org design and part of sort of improving going forward is you have to acknowledge sometimes you're not doing things as well as you might. So this we're not doing well. It's very high priority to our executives. So the VP of admin layer, that sort of layer, they're very concerned about this. Now, a lot of this too is around perception, around, do they think we're doing a good job? Do we have the audit and finance committee's support that we're doing a good job? Well, right now we don't. So I'll just be clear about that. So we're going to fix this. Create the capability to build rapport with clients and translate their needs into solutions. Okay. So we spend a lot of time on that word rapport. This is a very intense relationship with clients. So when you have rapport with someone, those of us who've played sports, if you have rapport with people on your team, you don't have to ask, where's that person going to be? They're going to be there. You know where they're going to be. They read the play the same way and they go and do it. Okay? So that's kind of what we want to target. We have to be able to build that rapport. It's not about taking an order from a client, saying, please give me SharePoint. Okay? That is not rapport. That is, why? Why do you want SharePoint? Maybe you want a file sharing system. Maybe you want a document repository. Maybe you want some kind of application workflow. Maybe you want a website. Maybe you want all of that stuff. Okay? But we're not in the here's SharePoint business. That's not where we want to go. So our opportunity is to build that rapport. And then once we have it, we still have to translate those needs into something that we can do in IT. That's why they're coming to us, because we have tools, technology, skills to move that along for them. Okay? But it's about that rapport. It's a higher order relationship with our clients. This is kind of a lot of words in this one. It doesn't really quite flow off the tongue, but create an organization-wide capability that develops sustainable IT investment plans aligned with the University of Manitoba's strategic initiatives. So a lot of that will come out of the governance model in terms of keeping us aligned organizationally wide, right? So it's the trade-off problem that the university and most large organizations hate, which is, I don't have all the money I want, and I, in marketing, need to convince that person in operations that I should make the investment. Well, at the University of Manitoba, that is, I, in student experience, need to convince the dean of engineering that our money should go there. That's a $10 conversation. That's like, how are you guys going to come to agreement? What do you share in terms of having a discussion? We've got to facilitate that. And that's what we're going to do. And keep ourselves aligned. So guess what? People's priorities change. The organization's priorities changed. And we can't be static. We have to design a system that's responsive. And so if people want to go in a different direction, we go in that direction. Okay? That's the idea. And it's at the university level. So it's not necessarily the person in a given department or faculty. So, if I call someone in HR and say, I need some help, okay? I'm hoping that the HR folks say, Mario Labar, the director of enterprise systems, phoned. I hope they don't say IT phoned or IST phoned. Because for that to be true, Mike has to phone, not me. Same thing holds for us in reverse. If somebody calls us and they're a frontline supervisor and they're calling from finance, that's Rhonda Charney is phoning, not finance. And so sometimes in the past, we've gotten a bit confused on that. We've chased solutions that aren't big enough for us to be involved in. Okay, so we're going to fix that. And those are the three things we think we need to fix first. Make sure we build some credibility on information security. Make sure we understand our clients and build that rapport and give them what they need, not necessarily just what they say. And stay aligned to the organization as a whole and where it's going. This is part of making IT strategic at the University of Manitoba. All right. Medium. Create a way to deliver integrated technology solutions. Integration. You're going to hear that over and over and over again. We've got to reduce the number of touch points between people inside the IT function. Primarily today we're going to be focused around IST, but inside IT, you heard from Mike, this kind of one IT sort of idea or concept. And deliver things that utilize all our skills. Not just what we have in one area. We are a multi-talented group. But when we go talk to clients, sometimes because we don't have a mechanism or a structure that really supports this, we sometimes go and we represent enterprise systems, or we represent CNS, or we represent desk side, some component of what we have. Now, those are big components, and we've got lots of people in them, but it isn't all we know how to do. And sometimes clients go, I thought you guys could do that. And we sometimes inadvertently say things like, well, no, we don't know how to do that. And then we're saying, we IST, or we this department, or we my team, or we me. And what I'm saying and what we're saying is we got to move back to representing IT as a whole and then delivering those integrated solutions. Improve our measurement and reporting capability for operational processes and strategic investments to support fact-based decision making. Okay. Measurement culture. So KL starting down that road, we're going to do more of that. We're going to get comfortable measuring. And I think as you see the measures roll out, there's no need to fear any of that. We're good at what we do. Could we be better? Yes. But that, sometimes people don't want to measure because deep down inside they're worried about, are we actually any good at this? And you know what? You got to get over that hurdle. We're going to measure. And even if we're not good at something, we're going to get better at it. But we have to measure. We have to be okay with that. Both operationally, like how we do tickets and resolve or meet service requests and service levels, but also strategically. And this is going to be a little bit of a harder one. But of all the money we have invested in IT, how much is going towards really cool new stuff to move the organization forward? So as an example, that one line there we had in our top 10, the mobile website improvement. That's a short way of saying, and Brian McLean was in this meeting with our client Brendan Hughes. He wants a world-class online web experience for students. That's what he wants, and he's going to go to the bank and try and get that. So when I told him, you know what, that's $2 million and 2 years, maybe. He said, yeah, no problem. So, that's how much of our whole money is invested in doing that kind of stuff. Really stuff where IT becomes a part of the reason students or professors come to the U of M. That may seem sort of, a bit, kind of, weird or out of left field. People come for other reasons because it's close or it's good enough or, I'm from Winnipeg, all that stuff. But that's our target. So we've got to find a way, and measurement is a way to do that, to say, well, how much are we investing in that kind of thing? If we've got a $10 million portfolio, do we spend $1 million on doing this new stuff? Or do we spend $5 million on doing this new stuff? That's what we're going to do. And then, information management strategy to more effectively deliver on our education and research mandates. And then you see a little bit of a, well, I guess it wouldn't be a formula because it doesn't have an equals in it, but a collection of topics there. And this is about the next step. You've heard about before that we talked about IST, IT, information technology, and then IM, information management. And we're not cutting any new ground here. Now, I thought we were at one point, but Mike straightened me out on this one and pointed out that there are other universities in Canada where the chief librarian or the head librarian and the CIO are the same role. So that's not a new idea. That idea that information management, what librarians really do, I'm not a librarian, but I'm going to guess. I've been in a lot of libraries. I feel like I slept in a Holiday Inn kind of thing. That they do that, but they don't have as access to as deep a knowledge of the tool set. So these things are merging together. And somehow what the folks in the library do who are IT people, the regular distributed people, the copyright office, how do you access that stuff? Research, privacy office, what can we make available? There's this sort of kind of thing of coming together here. Some schools are a little ahead maybe in this, but once we get those other pieces in place, this is kind of where we're going. And then improve our capability to respond to innovative requests in a timely manner. So as part of the transformation program, we have a group of individuals called business change managers. We have one from the Faculty of Health Sciences, Raman Dhaliwal. We have Jim Kelso from Asper, and we have John Anderson, who is the Dean of Computer Science, or Department Head, excuse me, and Dave Gabrielson, who supports stats. They're on our team. And we had a kind of a mapping session with them, trying to figure out what the benefits are of the transformation program. And mostly was to provide them an opportunity to directly talk to us and say, okay, what does it mean to be strategic when it comes to IT? And they kept going back to this idea of, you guys, and that was us guys, that was the terminology, although we're all on one big team, you you guys are too slow, you're not doing stuff fast enough, too many rules, can't get an exception, got to fill out 28 forms, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we took that back, we thought about it, and we said, look, we have a client here, a set of clients, that are telling us that this is the kind of service that they need. At the end of the day, we have two options. We have one where we can say, client is wrong. Flat wrong. There's no way for us to do that. We're not going to do that, and go somewhere else. And we've done that at the University of Manitoba in the IT department over the last 5 years, and they have gone somewhere else. Or the second option is, client is right. We need to actually amend how we do things. We need to have a different way to go through our processes. So that's what we chose. We said, we will have a way to do this. We will build a capability, which is a combination of skills and tools and process, to respond appropriately to these innovative requests in a timely manner. So speed is going to count. So we will be able to do this. Will we do it today? No. Maybe maybe we do. And what I called it before was, we do have this process. It's called do me a favor. That's what the process is. Somebody who knows somebody in IT phones up a person and says, can you do me a favor? Can you spin me up this VM? Can you install this piece of software? Can you write me this little interface? Can you do this thing? Can you deploy something for me? Can you go get this? That's called the phone a friend model. And it works. A little too informal, because what happens when that person on the client side leaves and goes somewhere else, and that person at the client, the dean or someone, is used to having that happen. New person comes in, I don't know anybody in IT. What am I supposed to do? I'll put in a service ticket. I'm going to do that. That's what I've been told to do. No, the other guy had a really fast way. He called Biff, and Biff did everything for us. Oh, okay. Well, where's Biff? Biff's gone. We don't have him anymore. Okay, so we're going to find a way to formalize that process. It's going to be legit. It's going to be explicit. We're actually going to say, yeah, we're going to do this. Okay? Okay. So those are our big opportunities. Seen this before, I hope, most of you. When we did our first go-around, last year around this time, we came up with these 8 design themes. And they are fairly general, and that's good, because then they can apply in a different context. So last year it was applying in terms of let's pick the operating model, plan, build, run, or something else. This time it's like, let's look at the org design, and let's run it through the same set of design themes, and let's see where we get to. So sustainable, got to work over time, not just today. Adaptive, got to be able to adjust. Accountable, got to know that people have enough decision-making room, span of control to actually be accountable for something. Sometimes we carve things up a little tight, and you're just accountable for a little piece of it, and you don't actually get the service, you don't produce the result that the client needs. Pivotal role in institutional strategy. So that's a big part of what we want to do, what we want to create. Make IT pivotal. Manageable and executable. I will be clear on this. This model that we are presenting today is harder to manage for IT. It's much simpler for the client, and that is the trade-off. The model we've got today is easier for IT to manage and harder for the client to navigate. Okay, so we're making that switch. Effective, yeah, you got to be able to produce what you mean to produce consistently over time. Efficient, least amount of rework possible. Part of that is also will come, how much rework do you have? Well, if you measure, you get an idea. And responsive. So that's that rapport part, understanding clients, staying aligned. You have to be sensitive to when things change in the outside world. We need to be responsive to that. Okay? Those are our sort of 8 design themes. We met 7 of them, and we kind of missed the 5th one there, the manageable and executable, but we think that's required. Okay. Now, design constraints. So I like constraints because constraints drive creativity. If you have all the time and money in the world, you'll basically do nothing because you'll sit there thinking about what am I going to do with all this time and money. When you get a constraint, must be done by then, I only have this amount of wood, time, money, that's when you get some creativity. So I didn't want to have a blank page, so I went to my boss and I said, okay, tell me something we absolutely need to have. I hope there is a few things. Frames the problem for me. Okay, create a director level information security position and leverage that as much as possible. Okay, so we need a director level person. So for all of you who are not going to be surprised by this next statement, just nod your heads. We work in a bureaucracy, a very large bureaucracy, right? Everybody knows that, right? And in a bureaucracy, right, status is driven by where you are in that hierarchy. So, and this is not a slight on anyone in this room, but if Michael McIntyre goes somewhere and says something, it carries a certain amount of weight. If I go somewhere and say the same thing, it carries more weight. And if Mike goes somewhere and says the same thing, it carries more weight than what I said. And it's not because we said anything any different. It's because of the status we bring with our roles. And that is how this organization operates. It's the same as any other bureaucracy. Okay? It's just how it works. So we have this position, you'll see it on the chart. Now we've got a director level, we might as well do something with them. So give them some accountability and make sure that they're not here just to solve an immediate problem. Like, we get the right person for this, they're going to help solve our information security issue, absolutely. Seen it done before, seen it done in large organizations. Probably take 2-3 years, couple it through the business cycle, you'll make progress all the way along, build good relationships, do all that stuff. But when that person is done, what are they going to do next? Right? We got some skills, people we hire, so let's hope so. So we're thinking, okay, one way to leverage that is that's where our information management capability is going to grow out into. So we're going to give them some resources, and we're going to grow this out. Design should allow for broad spans of control. Again, that means that, like kind of 1 to 10 between a manager and a staff, maybe more, because we work in one function. So we're not a general management organization. Whoop. Are we okay? Well, I hope it's not Paul Cochin saying, hey, I've been watching this, and hey, what have you been up to here, buddy? Or, that's all right. Okay, no problem. If it was my family or my home phone number, I always take the phone call. I always tell people, I said, look, I have to take this call because it could be anything from, can we order pizza for dinner, to house is burning, what should I do? It could be any one of those two things. So I always take that call. But most of their stuff I'll just set aside. Okay, broad spans of control so that people can actually get stuff done and have the resources available to accomplish those things. And ensure people management responsibilities exist within roles that have the authority to do so. So right now, we have a situation, not unique to IT, where we have people who are in the union, ACES union, which is no issue, but they're being asked to do performance management which includes the discipline component on their own union members. And we'd like to remove that potential conflict of interest, because it's a perceived conflict. Right? You can't be in the same union where you're going to do discipline on a person. I've been in a lot of different shops that have some of them highly acrimonious. This is not a highly acrimonious relationship. And some of them are a little bit more amenable, more like this one. But you still have to make that separation. So depending on how this rolls out, as we develop this over time, there still could be a competency component. You're going to have a person who's kind of responsible for, let's say, the analysts or the storage team, and that's their specialty, and you're going to work on their competency. But there has to be someone who's going to do performance management. This is what I need you to do. This is how it's going. Yes, you're doing a good job. No, you're not. And this is how you need to improve. You've got to be able to do that. Now, and that's a structural element, and that's something we're going to try and address with the help of HR and ACES to work our way through this. Okay? So we've got to split that out. All right, there you go, org chart. Beautiful. Colors and lines, dotted lines, arrows, everything. All kinds of cool stuff. Now, we're going to break it down for you. Not in the sort of the hip hop way, but break it down for you. Okay. But just as a general rule, and you'll be able to print this off and look at it. Don't look at the picture too hard. Generally speaking. Okay. Generally speaking. Boss is still at the top. You still have a CIO. This structure is meant to have the CIO work up and out. Up into the organization, higher levels, and out, and out with our clients. Okay, big thing. Colors. So the colors, these ones, are new positions. Okay, and I'm going to let Mike and Kale and Doug talk about each of the areas, but I just want to say the colors. The pink is existing client services and solutions, basically. Okay, and I didn't pick pink because the other ones are blue and gold. You know, I am of that age where, you know, boys wear blue and girls wear pink, but I didn't do that. The consultant did that. So I just left it as it is. Blue is current enterprise systems, approximately, okay? So this would be, you know, building applications, running applications, that's enterprise systems. Gold, and you know, gold is gold. It was yellow, but now it's gold. That's CNS, current CNS. Ones that are mixed, ones that come together, right? So I think a lot of people here recognize that the integration team, there are elements that some are in ES, some are in CNS, should be brought together. Came out of the operational workbook, came out of our own experience. Database and storage. You know, why does the database team report to me? You know, I'm the applications guy. Yeah, database people are nice. I like to talk to Carolyn. They always do cool stuff. But they're really operational people. So they're going to go together. Green, existing PMO, and Michael speak to that. So that's up there. And orange, and this is me not really understanding the color wheel completely all that well, so it's sometimes a little hard to tell. And that's existing sort of Office of the CIO administration. Okay, so that's the colors on the chart. Like I said, not self-explanatory. It's a straw man. Okay, so it could change as we work our way through this, and we'll talk about that. These boxes here, they are listing of processes that these areas would be primarily accountable for. So service desk is one we getting to know and love. Incident management, so they're primarily responsible for it, although lots of people engage in it. So because it doesn't say incident response under, you know, the application run area, doesn't mean they're not engaged in it. Okay, they're just not primarily accountable for it. What else do you need to know? Shared resource pool. Shared resource pool. Okay. So we're introducing the matrix. That's why this is a little harder to manage. You're going to have to do two things at once, which is, you know, that's what we're going to do. Operational stuff and project stuff. We think we're capable of doing that. And then I think KL will talk about the research person and the sort of the rapid response team. So so all of you here, do not spend any time trying to find your name or your job on this chart. Okay, you can spend time if you want, but don't waste any time doing that. Okay, because it's not there, it doesn't mean that your job or role is not there. And because it is there, it doesn't mean exactly what you do today is what you're going to do in the future. This is about the management layer. We'll talk about next steps as to how we're going to get to the one layer below it. All right. Tell me you don't have any questions. Okay, no problem. Okay. All right. Off to the boss.
Oh, I have to get up there, don't I? Okay. Well, you can't see that any better than the previous chart. I was going to say the other one was pretty intuitive, but that's because KL, Doug, Mario, and I have been looking at 18 different iterations of it. But to speak to the top level, I guess I want to go back to an earlier comment that I made about One IT. And it isn't that we're all being sucked into some vacuum or matrix to become a one IT. What we're trying to recognize is that there are elements on campus that need to come together and collaborate much better and more strongly than what we have in the past to be able to meet the mandate that is being set in front of us. So while I am at the top of the structure, the overall structure, it really is the assembly of all the parts that are going to make this happen. So to explain it out is, I'll start from your furthest right to left. Not because it's easier, just because it'll make it somewhat more logical. So when we started on this exercise, probably about a year ago, was that we really wanted to engage with the distributed or designated IT out in the faculty areas, recognizing that they have an important piece to play in this, and not sort of saying, well, this is just an IST problem. We do have issues, challenges, Mario talked about, and opportunities, but we really are trying to find a way, and through the operational workbook and through the skills assessment, it wasn't a way to mole our way in, it was to understand the business of IT across campus and really look at things from an enterprise-wide perspective, as Mario mentioned earlier. You can't do that by ignoring a major element on our campus. So to the far right, we recognize that faculty IT or distributed IT or designated IT, whichever term works best for you, is a force to be reckoned with and aligned. There's no bringing in to central IT or IST those components of that work that's being done outside of central IT today. And for sure, we understand better, given the work that's gone on and the discussions and meetings that have happened, the engagement with the business change managers that Mario spoke to, that there's a better understanding of how those units work. So they are in some ways distributed, but we're looking for closer alignment. And the one IT approach really is to talk to formal federation, which doesn't mean you need to own to be able to work more effectively. So they are on the far right-hand side. Did I miss a question? Okay, no, I didn't. So they're on the far right-hand side, but finding a mechanism to be able to connect them into how we move forward as an IT as an IT function. These blue boxes up here are speaking to the IT governance structure, that model of stakeholder communities of faculty, students, researchers, and administrators, and bringing them together with a sense of IT from an architectural perspective, with the top of that house being the IT Advisory Council. So a lot of work about investment and where are we putting our money and where are the priorities of the institution. So they are our strongest link to the executive team, the deans, department heads, and those areas that have responsibilities and mandates to run each of their areas. So that process I talked about earlier on IT governance is there, and really more of an alignment between that council and myself. The PMO IT remains intact as a service group to the central IT or IST component. So as it's gone through some reshaping over the last half year, we still have a situation and an opportunity to be able to have that group represent IT project management, program management, and now a much stronger portfolio management, and also benefits realization. I'm not going to explain any of those in any great detail unless somebody raises their hand. So not seeing that, I will move forward. So project, program, portfolio management, and benefits realization. So the next line of what I'll call strong lieutenants working alongside as we move this are the director level positions. I'm not sure if I need to sort of highlight the fact that our ability to work up in the top left hand here is really a stronger engagement with HR, ACES, CMAPs, physical plant, and all those units that we are interdependent on to do our job. So that's that sort of gray shaded area up here. At the director level, we're looking at, as one of the opportunities, a director of information security and compliance. So I'm not going to get into that to too much detail because it's on the next slide. but it's a new role. Another new role is the Director of Planning and Governance. Then we have the Director of Client Solutions and Services, which is an existing pink role. And then we have the Chief Technology Officer. So these responsibilities we'll speak to in greater detail as people come up and talk to their roles. So you'll see people who come up are those directors. So to the next slide. Ugh. There we go. Down? There we go. So information security and compliance. Not only has it become evident over the last couple of years that we are accountable to the board, I'm accountable to my boss, we're accountable to the institution and the work that we do. The risks of the work that we do are becoming greater and greater in not only this campus environment, but the whole Internet of everything that we connect to. And so the profile of information security has grown substantially even over the last couple of years. Our recognizing that we need somebody of this role to look not only at what our immediate obligations are, but planning out and strategizing where the university in its entirety is going to go, not just central IT, is really a testimony to wherever David Treble is sitting right now. So he will raise his hand. There we go, David Treble. So this is not David's role. I'll make that clear, and that's not meant to be an insult to David. But his ability to work with each of you and accomplish what needs to get done today in an information security capacity has only highlighted further how important this role has become. And so we add a compliance piece in, as much as our auditors shy away from having any responsibility for compliance, the buck needs to start somewhere. And that buck is going to be ours. And we intend on doing this role, not just satisfying the audits and recommendations that come through, but we're going to, as I think it was Dave Milton mentioned at a meeting once, we're going to bake these solutions into the work that we do. So it will become yet another part of our design and the work that we do. There will be a head of enterprise information security architecture. Architecture is going to take on a greater role and significance. So it's not just dealing with the day-to-day, but it's understanding it in that whole integrated context that Mario was talking about earlier. So what's that group exactly going to do? Well, there is incident response. So there is our reacting to those unfortunate events that happen on our campus. Education and outreach. Maverick Solutions will suggest that you don't really have to do anything about IT security in any context, not just higher ed. That if you just train people properly, they'll keep themselves out of trouble. I think that's maybe pushing the envelope a little bit too far, but education and outreach is something that we need to improve upon and provide to our client community. University and program leadership, so again, back to high tactical and strategic initiatives. Policy and process compliance. When I joined 3.5 years ago, we still have the same single policy, and that is not because we haven't tried to push other policy measures forward, but policy is responsible management. And although we are a campus and would like to think that we're completely open to everything, in some cases we are, and without policy and process around compliance, we are really setting ourselves up to be quite more vulnerable than we are today. IT audit response, we talked about the Office of the Auditor General and our own internal audit team who have been measuring the work that we do. Identity management falls in that, so some great work that's being done right now on identity and access management, and the systems replacement highlights how we need to do a better job in that as a service. So providing that service in a more responsible way than we are today. It's not to say the people who are doing it are irresponsible. It's just, again, the context of how we have to deliver on this work. IT service continuity, for those of you who like disaster, not so much recovery, disaster recovery is within, or disaster resiliency is within that IT service continuity piece. Information security management, and records and doc management. So I don't see it evident right within here, but there's not a time frame to this particular role. And what I mean by that, I mean a lifespan. Information security, as I'm sure you're all aware, is only becoming increasingly more complicated than even a few years back. So there's a long life to this role, but we would like to be able to elevate it to the point where there's some help that I can turn to as we move out of technology, information technology, and information management. And we think this is the place that it would sit in because of its collaboration with other units on campus who have IM, information management, as a responsibility also. So that's the context. These are the sort of the major roles or the major responsibilities, functions within that directorship. Oh, I'm good. Oh, sure, now I've got the button. So I think that is, I'm passing now to, the next one is planning and governance. Yes. It's that one.
That one. Okay, beautiful. I like to stand up. Okay. So this is the first one, very explicitly, about plan, build, run. So this is plan. I'll come back to describing the overall model at the end and where it kind of we've kind of warped it a little bit. But this is plan. So this is something we don't explicitly do today. We do a lot of it in terms of activity, but we don't bring it together in any one place. So the other thing that this person will do, because we're in IT, is enterprise architecture. So we're going to introduce that formal capability into the University of Manitoba. It's a piece that's been sorely missing, and we're going to add it in. And this area will produce our first strategic plan that the university has ever had, to my knowledge. And enterprise architecture, solution architecture. So this is not somebody sitting in a room, or as they used to say, in an ivory tower, drawing up documents and sending them out to the masses, through the window and seeing where they land. No, this group has to actually go and architect solutions. They have to go out and work it. So they push the strategy and the technology and the architecture that's targeted. On every project they work on, they're going to try and move it a little bit to that direction. And if they don't, they'll know why. But that's the idea, because that's how this works. It's not a paper-based process. It's a people-based process. So the people who fill this role as solution architects and an enterprise architect, they have relationships. They know they have to work with the build team and the run team and the client team. They're not policemen. They don't come back and give you a number and say, next guy. Okay? And the way we enforce that is you actually have to go out and work with those people. So it's a little harder to be distant when you're actually in there getting your hands dirty. Procurement. So procurement, most of it, moves over to this direction. Because planning and governance also has kind of a management component to it. This is kind of the business of IT. And that's things like vendor management, contract admin, and IT procurement. So those are functions we have today, and we want to put them together more in this planning and management capability. There's a little piece of it that we've left on the client side, and Kay will talk about that. Finance manager, that's a quarter of someone's time we have today. That's Colleen Lamont. She works in finance, and she comes over and works with us. IT administration. That is all the administrative functions that are in IT. So HR, payables, budget, all that stuff. Financial management, HR, resource management, we're going to try and bring that over. That resource planning tool that we kind of do, it sort of has a home. Well, it now has a home for sure. And those types of things. And then this new one, enterprise resource and org performance management. So we know we need to get better if we're going to have this matrix. We need to get better at resourcing. We need to be more flexible. Right now we have about a 3-month window. So when you go and do these resource plans, the managers do, they can see accurately about 3 months, which isn't half bad. And so if someone needs to change their mind a little bit in terms of a strategic project and we're going to resource it out, we can kind of adjust to that pretty well in about a 3-month window. which is good on that side. On the other side, though, if we have bigger things that require more than a 3-month commitment, we have to find a way to kind of solidify that so that we can work around it. So that'll be part of it. Organizational performance. So this is how we work as an IT group in its totality. Are we doing a good job? Okay, so that's this area here. I should say one last thing just to make it clear. We use the word head in every instance here because we don't know whether that person is excluded or included in terms of excluded from the unions at an EMAPS position or included in the union and an ACES position. We're going to work through that process. So that's why that term head is there. That's on advice from our friends in HR, so we do take advice. And that's what it's meant to be, okay? So that's what it is. And we'll talk more about that process as we move along. All right.
I'm not going to jump up there. Let those guys do the jumping up and down, if that's okay. But I am going to talk a little bit about some new positions and some new opportunities in this area. So services and solutions. No, solutions and services. So it's a little bit longer. But there are some functions that we've been doing that we initiated as part of our ITSM that are you'll see a lot of ITIL type processes identified in these charts. So if some of them don't seem familiar or we haven't gotten enough depth, that one piece of advice I give you is go back to your ITIL manuals and you'll see definitions. There's a really good glossary that describes some of these. We did a lot of that, referencing back to that, to ensure that we really understood when we say, service level management and service catalog management, and we want to really make sure we were capturing all the processes that needed to take place. So that's a new function that we've assigned, I'll call temporary owners for as part of our process design. Obviously, some of the processes will have to be reviewed to ensure that we've got the new roles assigned to them. Another role that is not new but is enhanced or expanded a little bit, because we haven't had the full staffing. So we recently hired one new person in client relationship management. And so we're looking at client relationship management is really about business relationship management. It's about having that IT advocate. It's about building that rapport. It's really looking back to that opportunity statement, which was about the rapport for clients to translate their needs into solutions and the ability to handle things in a timely manner. That's the opportunity statements we're trying to resolve by having that. That, referencing what Mario said about procurement, we're looking at procurement consulting as being part of that. That's that initial conversation. We're finding now that sometimes those conversations are happening, we're having to say no because the consulting is happening too late in the business process. So a little piece of that would move up front. I'll talk about the bottom one in a minute. Going up to the head of service desk, a lot of those are it's the process owner for incident request fulfillment. As Mario said, lots of people resolve incidents, lots of people deal with incidents, lots of people are involved in service requests, but it's the process owner side, the team that's primarily responsible for ensuring that there is a process and it's followed all the way through. That first role is, looking at how do we improve our ability to respond to things in a timely manner, to continue to build on some of the early wins we've had in improving our service effectiveness. It includes things like problem management, the help desk, knowledge management, desktop and mobile phone ordering, like the beginning of the process. So most clients are seeing that ordering a phone is really no different than getting a laptop. The way technology is changing. And so they're looking for those solutions. Access management and what we call the easy system, and the things that we can answer a first contact resolution. We can help somebody get their access immediately right now. Another piece that we've broken out is the head of client support. So client support was we were struggling a little bit with new names for some of these heads. As Mary said, this is the straw man, so some of these might change a little bit. But this area really is looking at the open area teaching labs, the desk side support, some aspects of classroom technology, some aspects of mobile devices and telephony. It's putting that in a simpler way is maybe some of that level 2 desk side support, supporting desktops, supporting computers. It doesn't really matter where a laptop or desktop is, but it really supported by the same skill set. So putting all those things together. And then the last one, which is another olive colored or greenish colored box there, the client relationship research and education services. One of the things we heard really, really clearly was we need the ability to respond quickly with different type of rigor, different types of processes to research and education needs. So we recognize that there's a different type of rapport might need to be built. And in a lot of cases, this role will be working really closely with Mike. As Mike goes out and has these conversations about the research needs and about the big strategic direction of the university, this person would be kind of in a lot of ways his right-hand man. Along that side of this, and you can't see on this diagram the arrow, but on the big picture you'll see an arrow going back over to what's called a rapid response team. It's going back to those resource pools that you'll see in when the next person comes up, and you'll see these resource pools of people that can help do things in a quick way. Research area needs a server, and they're not going to be looking to back it up. They want to do something very quickly. They want to do it in a way that's protected, perhaps shielded from the rest of the network. It can be done very quickly. This person would work very closely with that rapid response team, have the access to these resources to help fulfill our client needs in a really quick manner. And so I'm going to turn it over. I think that's the highlights. We'll be available for more questions.
Okay, I asked for the big slide to go up because there are some things you have to understand from the comprehensive whole. Because the technology side is a big part of the university and will continue to be a big part of the university. This is organized around, as Mario said, planning is happening over here, this is build, and this is run. You'll be able to see these names a little bit better when we get into it. It's probably going to be hard anyway. So what is the big difference between that is the separation between production and your non-production environments. We have a very complicated environment here. We have a lot of different customers. It's time we started treating their needs differently. So we really are going to have two production environments. That's the way we want the customers to feel about it, but it's really not that way. So the main production environment is the university systems. Every organization has an HR, a payroll. Here, big thing is student learning systems. Things like this that people will count on every minute of every day to do their jobs. So we have to keep that production environment resilient. We have to keep it safe and secure. And when those systems go down, we bring them up right away. 24-hour on call. This is what we do with those systems. So that's my definition of the production environment. What we have to do then is separate it out into our non-production environments. Dev, test, next, staging, call it whatever you want to. We have to manage those separately so that anything we do in there, including testing, including bouncing, including bringing things down, don't affect the people who are trying to do their jobs on a day-to-day basis. Right now, they're really tightly linked, and it was done. It's quite amazing how it's done, to be honest with you, from a technical perspective. It was done because budgetary constraints or other reasons. We're not going to get into that. However, what happens in one can affect the other, and we have to stop. We have to break that link. Is that easy and quick? Heavens no, it's not. But we have to get that way because, as Mike alluded to, there is business continuity, business resiliency, disaster recovery, whatever term you want to use. We struggle with that concept because our production environment is the entire production and non-production environment. So everything falls into disaster recovery, and no one in the world could do disaster recovery properly in that type of environment. So that's what that feeds into. So one of the other green boxes here is the gatekeeper. How do you move things from your non-production to your production environment? These people are going to be responsible for it. We'll see more of that going when we get into it. But some of the lines that cross things, as KL said, this is the people who talk to research and education. This is the rapid response area. It's not a group, it's not a team, it's not a person. It is because the researchers and the academics, they're these people who say, I have money, why aren't you doing something? Okay, now we're going to take your money, now we're going to do something. So It's called a rapid response team because it is going to be quick in that regards. It doesn't mean it's the Wild West and there's no rules, you can do whatever you want to, but it's not going to follow that same rigor of standing something up. It's not going to follow the same detailed architecture. It's not going to go through the gatekeeper in the same way. But the big thing is this environment cannot affect our larger production environment, which cannot affect our larger dev and test environments. So is it much more complicated? Absolutely it is. Is it built on a really good, strong network and infrastructure? Absolutely it is. But it carves our clients into the groups we need them to be because they have different needs now. The other thing is these dotted lines. You can't see this here, but these are shared resource pools for infrastructure and for applications. So why are they on the run side of the house? Because production trumps non-production. Always has, always will. What are these dashed lines? Well, you realize the people in the dev and testing in the build area need these resources. So this is the sharing line to say that, yeah, these people with the skill sets have to be used on both sides of the house. As well, and Mara did a really good job of pointing it out, they will also have a strong relationship with the plan group because you can't plan something that we can't afford to build and we're not set up into production to run on a sustainable basis. So this is the build side of the house. So, where'd it go? There it is. So, application, infrastructure, both build side, that's your projects, your non-production environments, doing the projects that come down and testing everything as well. And then this we call service asset and configuration management. So I really stress the configuration management part, the change management part, sorry, which was the moving things into production, making sure it's tested, making sure we know what's in there. The service asset and configuration management is a big part of that. So we know when assets are in production, we track the licensing, we track the patching, we make sure the patching is done properly, we make sure everything is up to date. This is a remarkably important component. It's in green because having someone accountable for it on the entire organization structure is new. We do this and we do a very good job of it, but everyone kind of does it in their own way and we got to look at it from the whole organization side. So this is the build component. So now that was these boxes. So now we're moving over to this group here. So this is the run side. You can read it a little bit better, but not a whole lot better. So applications on one side, infrastructure on the other, which is why it's kind of the CNS colors and the enterprise system colors. So you barely make that out, but applications resource pool, infrastructure resource pool. Some of the naming, some of the groups have changed. That was very intentional because we want people to have career paths and career aspirations that you could move from one particular role to another. So we tried to group like into like, anticipating where people might want to take their careers. Doesn't mean you can't switch lanes, of course, but you know, technology is getting so specialized now and you get so deep into it and you get into certifications and things like that, it gets harder and harder to change lanes the longer you go at it. And then here it says this is the Research and Education Rapid Response Team, which is just a percentage of all the other teams. So core infrastructure run, things like event management, operations management, availability, capacity, performance management, and then on the applications run side, applications maintenance management, and the quality assurance side. And then these are those lines back to the other groups. So I think that was it for me. Yes, over to you, Mario.
So Doug is modest, humble. So he is. Is that a production problem? Yes, it is. It is actually. Yes, it is a production problem. Can you guys hear me over there in Bannatyne? No? Yes? Oh, okay, good. Beautiful. So Doug is the Chief Technology Officer. So that is an important element, and vast majority of what we do today is in that area. And that is primarily to allow Mike to do this up and out. Because today, when he has his discussions with us, it's a great deal of operational discussion. How are things going on projects, Mario? What's going on in applications? Is it something down lately? What's going on with the network? How are we doing on incidents? So every organizational design has some trade-offs in it. And there's no one perfect design. Not that I've had anybody even admit to saying they put one together. So you got to look at it that way. It's a bit of a trade-off. The other thing I wanted to say before I get on to this part is back to our big picture. There's the big picture. Okay. So client-oriented, right? That's a client piece, and you can see how important, in some respects, Mike is a client person, right? So lots of emphasis on client, understanding clients, working with clients. Okay? Director of Information Security, it's a bolt-on. Doesn't fit the plan, build, run model. It's there because it's appropriate in our context. And then you've got plan, build, and run. So client-oriented, and we're working away from technologies towards process and finally service. Client-oriented, service-based. Okay, so client-oriented, clients are in there. Service-based, not about technology, as you know, moving away from a technology focus, more towards a client process, and then finally service. What else do I want to tell you about that? Harder to manage, more complicated, but easier for the client. Okay? Client basically works with Mike and the CRs on the front, maybe some architects on projects. Okay. Those are sort of the big themes. Opportunity to apply for any new jobs that you are interested in. So as we roll this out, that's what's there. This is a move to a modern IT organization. Apply for those jobs. New skills and abilities. You can see there's skills, some skills we don't have today that we need to build out, we need to add in. And some skills we do have, but we need to get better at them. How are we going to do this? Incrementally, over 2 years. We're big enough that it's very hard to manage this on a big bang basis. In other words, come in, a meeting like this, you all have new job descriptions, you all have new roles, everything's all done all at once. The cutoff is about 200. When I talk to people who do this, you know, kind of for a living, other consultants, other organizations, that's about the cutoff. So we're just under that in terms of saying, yeah, you could do it in a big bang way. Over 200, they definitely recommend don't. But for us, incrementally makes more sense. So part of it, we're going to attempt to do the management layer first. And once we get that filled, then we will work the next layer down. Okay? And I think we have just let me see if I've got this. Oops, sorry. Okay. Okay. You've heard a lot. About an hour. What do you think? Okay, so lots to absorb here. I can completely understand that. And it's probably not the easiest environment to put up and say, you know, Mario, that's a load of horse crap. Not the easiest environment to say that in. I can understand that. That's okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Hi, Mario.
Yeah.
I was wondering, what time frame are you looking at for the upper management level to be implemented and then start working on the next levels down?
Our goal is spring of 2015. So the steps are well known, but the timing is dependent on our interaction with the union. So, sorry? Keep on talking. Okay. So we have to write the jobs and we have to rationalize them, make sure that they work together and fit together, because today we have jobs that are kind of working at cross purposes, unfortunately. Then we need to get them evaluated, see where they're at. When we have that group of those ones that are on there, 26 roughly in total, then we're going to begin our discussions with the union and say, okay, which one of these should be excluded and under what conditions?
So basically, by spring, you expect to have all those positions that have head on them defined?
One or the other.
Sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
And well, actually, I'd like to get that done by sort of all things considered by the end of February, and then I'd like to actually staff those positions in March. That would be the goal. But depending on how long that takes, it could take a little bit longer. Could take till June. But don't want to do it over the summer. Would like to have something in place, worst case, sort of June 2015. Fair? Fair. I get a head nod from the director of HR, so that's good. That's the idea. So yeah, evaluate, consult, post. So part of that is lessons learned, right? From the last time we did this, we have a big advantage. We just did this a little while ago, and some of it worked out well and some of it didn't, and we're not trying to we're trying to learn from that.
I'm wired.
Okay. Anything else? Now? Okay, carry on.
Well, I guess after that's been done, how long do you expect it to take for those positions beneath that basically to start to be defined and names to be put in?
Oh, sorry. Okay, so this is our idea. What we want to do is we expect that filling those positions, the way we're going to go about it, it's in the FAQ, but essentially what we're going to do is we want the IST and distributed IT people we're not going to post this on ReachUM or outside of IT. So all those positions will be posted internally for those two groups first. We're going to fill that in. We expect most of those positions will be filled by our people within the university in those two groups. One of the real advantages of that is that next layer down, we want to work this collectively. So all those managers together, along with the directors that we have, we want to rely on their knowledge of their team. So where is the best place to put these people? Balancing that sort of subjective-oriented individual need with what the organization does. So we have some information around IST from the workbooks and from our own experience, but the frontline supervisors know their people best. And we want to leverage that knowledge as best we possibly can. So that's why we'll do it in iterations. Fill that layer in first. Okay, now we're going to do the next step. Likely we could do information security, maybe a bit sort of, first step on that. We could do perhaps on the client side a bit, and maybe even planning sort of in phases. But the build and run component, that likely has to be done at once. So we can do it in that sort of 4-phase approach. That's kind of what we have sort of thinking about. But the build and run has to kind of come together. So, but that's the idea. Fill the management, leverage that knowledge of the team, build that out. I think if that team is in place by June, I would think this time next year. So probably about a year. You guys can come up here too. Heads up. Go ahead.
Mario, is this on? Yeah. You used the word distributed about a minute ago.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that sentence that had the word distributed in it, please?
No, I can't.
Well, I
Ask
heard
me
the
a-
word distributed. In what context were you talking about then?
Those are people who are doing IT-related work who aren't in IST.
Okay, but you said something about it though. I mean, are you looking at updating job descriptions or technology? I'm just confused. You mentioned the word distributed in the context of all of this, writing and updating manager job descriptions and stuff, so I'd like to know what you meant.
Okay, sure, fair enough. I mean, Mike can answer as well. The job descriptions we're rewriting are the ones that are on the chart. And you can see that distributed computing is not in that group. It's a block. There's a head of faculty, distributed computing, it's one block, it's gray. sorry, it's purple, that's it. It's not on the right-hand side there.
Yeah, I understand.
That's not in scope of the job description part.
Okay, so that's basically what you were saying.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. I
But
just
when
didn't hear
it
you,
comes
so-
to applying for work,
Yeah.
applying for these new roles, we're including that group in the pool of people who can apply first.
Yeah, so in other words, if I want to apply for any of this stuff, I'm part of the university, so I'm welcome to apply to it, so.
Well, we're going to limit it.
Well, you're limited, but the thing is, if the opportunity is there, you're saying, yeah, no, I
Yeah,
understand.
you get a bonus.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, so.
Yeah,
thanks.
absolutely. That's right.
Yes, yep. And apparently, this is also a first, that we're limiting it to a portion of the community. In the old language of, we're posting internally, meant it still went to the website. So Mario's already alluded to that it won't be posted on ReachUM, which poses HR a problem in terms of complexity, but also additional work. But they're prepared to take it to that level, because we really wanted to isolate and focus on this IT community of central IT and distributed IT people. So that's that activity then within that to spring of 2015 timeframe, and you'll get long lead time and notice as this thing is coming to shape and before the actual posting date, so that if you're away on vacation for a week, you shouldn't come back and feel like you've lost an opportunity to be part of the process. I think it was Matt.
Hi, yeah. I actually have two questions. One of them was earlier in the presentation, right? You guys had reiterated plan, build, run. What I didn't hear was, where does client solution services, am I presuming that it's in the run, or am I presuming that
It doesn't fit.
it doesn't fit?
No, it doesn't fit. So that's from this two-dimensional perspective,
Okay.
right? It doesn't fit into plan, build, run. Like in terms of from a purist perspective, in the sense of is it a planning function? Is it a building function? If you have to put it somewhere, it's probably in the planning side because it's helping to manage and shape demand. But the process model here, which you don't see, is the client piece would be out front. It's the first interface with the community. But if you were to drop a plan, build, run chart, a pure one, it might fold underneath the planning component. But we didn't want to do that. We wanted to elevate it.
Okay, so that my second one is just off, a little bit slightly off base off that. But what happens if there's a shared service? For example, how does one group work with another if there's a shared application or service that they're sort of managing or sort of supplying support for?
Sorry. So I'm just going to remind, so you may have forgotten this part of your ITIL training, but one of the things that happens with every service is you have a service level agreement between IST and the clients, and you have an OLA, which is an operational level agreement, which says how do we work together to provide that service. So it's really important to have those agreements and that process in place. So you'd actually have Team A and Team B would have an operational level agreement saying, how do we work together? What stuff do I have to give you so you can do your part of the work? And those are really important pieces that we covered, or we initiated in the incident request fulfillment. So way back a few months ago, people may not have remembered that, but we started developing operational level agreements. And it's about process. So Mario talked about the fact that process kind of overlays. This is 2 dimensions. Process is the 3rd dimension.
Thank you.
Rob? Everyone. It would be everyone. Yeah, we're not going to limit it to the science, ASPR, and medicine or health sciences faculties that we've been working closely with. It'll go to all. So basically, that monthly group that you bring together, Rob, that's what we've defined as distributed IT. Next week? Okay. No marketing on that.
So clearly, central IT is not going to get any smaller. for structural reasons and also because of another layer of management. Do you have a sense for, though, how much bigger it's going to be?
So don't know if it's going to be any bigger. We do have some funding set aside to support some of the new positions, the distributed IT, the ISK security side for sure. We have about $500,000, maybe a bit more, depending on what the organization says. And part of what I have to do is put up a pro forma to determine where we are and what we would need to support this. But I think it'd be relatively the same size. It might be a little bit here and there, but it's not going to be 10% bigger. And yes, there is one extra layer of management, which would be that on the build side, there is those two senior heads. And if you're old enough to me, you get the joke. But that's the one extra. So there's two extra spots there.
But the plan isn't necessarily to grow, not even 10% then?
No, don't think so.
Okay.
So actually, also to Bill's point, was in trying to stay as true to the model as possible, we may have certain roles, as Mario mentioned, it may take 2 years for us to incrementally grow into it. So we're going to have to petition for that to happen. So if there are extra financial resources required beyond what we've been able to kludge and keep preserved or reserved for this purpose, then it's going to have to be, as the game moves forward. And we didn't want to preclude actually too far ahead because, as Mario mentioned earlier, there's still a requirement to work with ASIS to determine the ASIS or EMAPS coin toss. Trevor.
This might be more of a comment than a question because I think it's already been mostly addressed. But starting to take on board some of this information, when you look at sort of the right-hand production side of the house and how it fits into sort of these ideas of plan, build, run, I know that myself and a lot of the people I work with do things that are aspects of those things. And even in a hallway conversation, we might have things that feel like we're trying to solve a specific problem, and here's how we're going to solve it in the production house, and in the future, we could maybe solve it by making a structural change. So we're kind of doing all three things at once. Now, I'm getting a vibe that we're going to be asked to choose an emphasis or maybe have some input into an emphasis for where we see ourselves further down the road. I think I did hear some good language around people having to work with each other, but I've seen some great stuff happen in the past where sort of the run people go back all the way to plan. They say, we built something that sounded beautiful, it got a little bit, the practicalities of building it after it came out of planning weren't quite what we wanted them to be, and now that it's in production, it's eating us alive because we have to reboot it every 7 hours. And so we want to be able to iterate back through the process. I think I heard some good language around that. I just want to emphasize that that's really important to those of us who've spent our lives doing some of that, is to make sure we don't kind of sit at the bottom doing run that is bailing water. Mm-hmm. So. Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, I'd just like to riff on that and perhaps seek some clarification. It's sort of maybe teasing into the process side of things, which I know is coming, but a little bit of, with respect to that relationship between plan and build and run, like how you see that at this early phase.
Plan rules all, says the planning guy. Except I have no bodies, right? So like clearly you can become disconnected when you're the planner, because yeah, that's nice, Mario, and we'll get back to you when you got that figured out. Or very great approaches. That's incredibly interesting. It's going to take us 3 years to figure out whether or not we can actually do that. So there's a lot of mechanisms that allow both sides to not do something. Both of them have many ways in which to stop the process. So the issue is not the 27 ways it won't work. The issue is, what's the one way it will? So what we need is people to have a mindset to work together. We need people to respect each other's knowledge and abilities, but also people to respect each other's responsibilities and accountabilities. So if you've got some input to the architect and you're not the architect, bring the input. If you're the architect, listen. I can't make it any clearer than that. And if you don't play by those rules, there'll be some problems. Because then you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So I don't know what else to tell you.
One other aspect that I don't know if Mary mentioned or not, there is a big component of capacity management and planning management. So the work gets broken into logical projects. Projects get planned so we don't have 75 things on the go as once. And then part of the project process is you do your closeout properly. What did you learn? What worked? What didn't work? And we all know, and we've all been on those projects, oh, this project's going to take 3 months longer because we're already dying in production. So there's that give and take in the ebb and the flow, but you know, what you guys just focused on is the main thing Mario said earlier. This is not an easy model to manage from an IT perspective. This takes people wanting to work together, being committed to working together, and going that extra step to work together. This is easy for the customer, for the client. So, yep, you're bang on, but we've just got to work hard at it.
So I just want to add to what Doug is saying. You know, you've heard in past presentations roles, responsibilities, authorities, those sort of pressure point type words, and what this structure allows for is to actually find someone with the authority and the responsibility to make those architectural and design responsibilities. You know, I don't know how to say this more politely than I'm not going to. But when I first joined the university, it was amazing how everybody could have an opinion to something, but nobody would make the decision. And there was really nobody to turn to other than maybe the director, who then felt like they were always in the crosshairs of a bad gunfight. So it was, and you can't expect that at that level of management to have that deep technical kind of expertise. So that has evolved. You know, people have stepped up to the challenge, and they've taken on those responsibilities in an informal way. In some ways, it's just a collegial way, but we do want to move towards something that's a lot more formalized, and people know that the buck does stop with them, and that there are people who are doers, there are people who are planners and designers and architects, and to be clear about those roles. We're a large department that essentially, I can't say this any more politely than I'm going to. We are playing like a small, mid-size IT department. I don't know how many of you have colleagues outside of the university, but put us up against any of those 200-plus person, add distributed IT of another 50 or 60 people. I don't know of too many 250-plus staffed IT departments in Winnipeg are dealing with some of the issues and the complexity, throw that layer on top of it then too, and realize that we're dealing without layers of resource management, architecture, really, you know, those senior responsibilities. And so we're trying to, we recognize that and trying to put that into the model by giving people the authority to do the job that we know some of you can. Yes, sir.
Probably not necessary for me to say this, but when I heard Trevor say about the bailing of the water, I think maybe what he needs to know is assurance that the planner knows what it's like to bail water for 7 years. And perhaps that would make a better communication between the planner and the end runtime situation, so that they actually know what it's like instead of just being in a planning seat, you know. And so that's all I have to say.
Yeah, this isn't a model that's supposed to separate people. So the recognition of planning creates building, which creates running, is actually you know, a really good approach to connecting those people in the plan work that we do, the build work that goes on, and recognizing that it's not a throw over the wall and now it's your problem, and that you have to sustain it for the next 10 years, or on the budgets that we have 20.
So the other thing to remember is that whenever you build functions like this, you have to work across those functions. So we have that today. We have this actually has fewer silos and groups than we have today. So for example, as the CTO, he's got the build and the run. There's no Peter to steal from Paul for him.
And that's exactly what can happen today. I have a group of people who do very similar work to what Doug does. And he's got some people who do very similar work to my team. So we can definitely rob Peter to pay Paul. And under this model, you can't. Not if you implement it correctly. If you want to, if you want to misbehave, hey, any model will let you do that. But if you want to figure out one that has fewer places where you can do this sort of manipulation, this separation makes it explicit. That's one thing. It's better than what we've got today. That's the second thing. And then the third element is that sort of the dish can't run away with the spoon here. Like there's just no way for that to happen. Because the planning guy, how many times does he have to make a mistake before his boss says, what are you guys doing from an architecture perspective? We can't get anything implemented. How many times does he have to have the call and say, look guys, what are you guys doing there? Hopefully it only happens once. Right? So it's very difficult in this kind of compensating approach to have that happen.
Can I just say one last thing to that? It doesn't matter what model you have. The thing is, if you don't have a person who doesn't have the experience of bailing water for 7 years, it doesn't matter what model it is, right? Yep. So what I'm saying is, it's not so much the model I'm concerned about, it's finding a planner, or finding the people in general who know what someone on the totally other side of the room have been through. And I think that's very important, because it's easy to fill a position, but maybe, like you said, we need to look at the overall impact. So it's not more about the model, it's about understanding.
You need talent.
Yeah, the talent.
So you need a model, you need talent,
Yeah.
and you need process.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Okay, good.
I also think that chief enterprise architecture role will be incredibly hard to fill. As a matter of fact, I don't even think we're going to fill it. It's very, very hard to find that role. The guys who can do that, the men and women who can do that, they are fully employed at the moment. We're going to have a hard time creating that kind of environment to make that happen. This is a complex place, and someone's really going to want to have to take that on. So I have no illusions that these are slam dunks.
Hi, Mario. Yeah, neither Paul nor Peter likes to be stolen from or be in possession of stolen goods, trust me. The question I have was, for all those head positions, one thing that struck me when I was looking at this is it's almost like you're trying to legitimize or bring to life the informal process that has gone on IST all along, which is the relationships between people, which is which is really what's kept IST running. And I guess, are you going to be going for people in those roles who have strong relationship skills?
Yes.
Yeah. Good answer.
We agree on a lot of things, yeah. I hope that was the answer you were expecting, Paul.
Okay, we've just got a little bit more to finish up here. You have a
Bannatyne.
Sorry.
Can we just sort of just take a
anything-
moment?
Anything at Bannatyne? Any questions?
We're all sitting so patiently out there.
Yeah. No, you're gonna get.
Board started to wave.
You're gonna get hands-on with Mike and Doug tomorrow, and you can. So that's they're gonna go out to Bannatyne tomorrow to walk them through, because we recognize that this can be a little bit difficult to consume at distance. So they're gonna go out and talk to them. We do have an FAQ for staff that will be posted. The happy chart there, the org chart will be posted. We are gonna schedule some follow-up. I'm going to give you a few days to kind of mull this over, think about it. Some people said stew. I prefer contemplate. It depends on how you want to look at it. Think about it might be a better way. We're going to do detailed planning for phase 2. And then the last bullet here is incredibly important. Now, KL brought this up in one of our discussions, is that we still have business as usual. This is our target state. What you're going to do today when you go back, you do what you normally do. And you continue to do that. Okay? Continue to work, continue to execute on the projects, continue to kind of learn these new ways to do things if they're new for you. Continue to do that business as usual, because that's what the university needs us to do. Okay, so this is not a hard stop. We're changing 4 lanes on the interstate and hitting the exit in 5 minutes. It's not going to happen because we have to keep running. Okay, so just we have time to sort of think this through. And then, right, we talked about this. And then over to you, Mr. Landstrom.
I think there's just one last slide. Yep. There we go. So as Mario mentioned, we want to have information sessions soon following after this, so definitely before the Christmas break. But if anything comes to mind, we have our usual mechanism, this closing slide, which says if you've got some concerns, observations, questions, speak to your manager about it. Or you can send the inquiry into the feedback email. But we realize that this is a lot of information, and so we're not just going to resort to that. There is going to be a lot of interaction and post-presentation or representation of some of this material. I'm not sure if it was highlighted. Yes, okay. The last point, I hope there aren't a lot of graffiti artists in the group, but what we're hoping to do is post sort of a large-scale plotter-sized org chart with some reference material beside it in the common central IT areas, so like up on the 6th floor, on the 5th floor of engineering, 3, in Fletcher Argue, down on the main or lower level of the admin building. And what I would encourage you to do is, first off, if you're looking at it and maybe reading it for the first time because you can actually read the lettering that will be on it, feel free to sort of mark a question on it or use a Post-it note and drop it onto the chart. Sign it if you want to, don't if you don't want to. But we would like to sort of provide a physical representation of what we've talked about today, so that you can look at it, hopefully find yourself in it, or opportunities that you might want to pursue, and mark it up. And we'd like to collect all of that information by the end of next week, I think, by next week, Friday, and pool it in together with what we're going to hear in the breakout sessions and some of the director level follow-up sessions that we've got planned. So you don't have that in your calendar right now, but we thought we'd put that invitation out there and get a sense for whether that was something that you think we should spend any effort on. So information sessions, breakout sessions, the chart up in an area where you can actually read it. All in favor? That's enough. Oh, we don't have quorum yet. 5 more people. There we go. Thank you. Oh, 2 hands. Beautiful. Okay. So the only closing comment I have is, I hope this met your expectations. We sort of put a little bit of a sense out there that we were going to speak at this level. And that you've got some time now to, like Mario said, digest it, and we'll do some follow-up. So thanks for your time, and we'll see you at the Christmas party. Holiday party, sorry, holiday party.